Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. I am DBJ, your host on this channel, RPG with DBJ. Thank you for stopping by or catching the show much later. Today is Thursday, better known as Third Pillar Thursday, or more specifically, Third Pillar of Exploration Thursday. Yes, exploration is one of three main pillars in the tabletop RPG um, community. The first and second pillar kind of corresponding with social interactions and combat. So we're going to talk about the third pillar of exploration. And for those who do not know, this channel is a podcast. It is TriCast over three platforms: Twitch, YouTube, and the audio gets punched out to our Discord server, as well as the fact that we bring up a subject, we talk about it all week long, and we subdivide it for each day. Today being, of course, Third Pillar Thursday, which is kind of like it's kind of my baby. But oftentimes, not only do we talk about the subject all week long, but the subject many times is designed, at least from my point of view, to back me into a corner, to basically find something that's either so broad you can't really talk about it because you'll go too far off, you get too squirrely and go too far off topic, or it's like a subject that really doesn't fit neatly into any particular day. And today is one of those days where we're talking about the entourage. Yes, the ensemble, the hangers-on, the people surrounding the protagonist or antagonists in depending on which side of the DM screen you sit on. So how does that fit in with exploration? Well, I feel like we can come at this on the surface level two ways. So for me, exploration, of course, a very broad scope, is exploring the setting, the world, the environment, the physical aspects of exploration: climbing, jumping, swinging, scaling, diving, crawling, all those things that would happen out in the wilderness and or your urban centers. Running across rooftops, sliding into tight spaces in the subterranean realms, hacking through jungles, all that kind of stuff, diving for treasure, whatnot. But exploration can go even further than that, where not only are you exploring an area, but you're also trying to discover things, information, locations, hidden passageways, that kind of thing. And so having a reward in discovering where you are exploring also counts as well. For example, someone's looking for the Fountain of Youth, and you discover a hidden passageway that was, into a subterranean cave, or you find an easier way to navigate your ship through dangerous, treacherous shoals and rocky surf or something like that. So there might be a reward for exploring. Jarl DM says, "Hey, what's going on there?" And hey, Cameron. Jarl DM says, "One way I considered using an entourage in third pillar was to use them as red shirts to make it clear to the players how dangerous a place is." Yeah, we don't really give, despite the stereotype of the trope, there is a reason why this particular thing is done. So Jarl DM talks about, about red shirts. And if you're not as geeky as, or you feel you're not as geeky as the rest of us, of course, red shirts refer to the unnamed crew members of Star Trek that happen to get killed off usually in the beginning scenes of a Star Trek episode, to reinforce like a danger, a lethality. It's a way to get across a danger without having to explain to the consumer what the heck is going to happen when they are consuming their favorite intellectual property. The same goes for the same has always been done in horror movies, right? Where there's some unnamed individuals, usually um, teenagers with like drinking and or drug problems, rebellious and disrespectful of authority, and they have hot pants. They're having um, premarital sex or something, and they go off to some place that's some bounded location, and then one by one they start to get killed off, giving us a clue as to what the heck is going on. Uh, a lot of times in a prologue that will happen as well. Show a bunch of people getting capped off. We understand the danger. We go back in, and so your LDM's point is like, well, you know what? You could surround somebody with a bunch of these red shirts, these nameless individuals who stumble into a place that's extremely dangerous or lethal, and then it gives it very viscerally foreshadows the dangers involved. Much like, I don't know, hey, um, Joe and Ariana or something, why don't you guys go forward into the dungeon? And they're like, sure. And then a big pendulum blade comes and cuts their heads off, and everyone's like, yeah, didn't see that coming, but whatever. Cameron says treks through harsh environments often requires a team of people to cross successfully, like jungles and deserts. We often let players ignore this, though, it seems. No, that's exactly where my mind was going. That to successfully cross or navigate or survive a particular environment, the frozen tundra, or high altitudes in the mountains, or crossing a desert, it might require, or more likely than not require, a huge team of people to do it successfully, or even the players gathering those individuals that know how to survive in order to get them across, because on their own they may not be able to. Jarl DM says an NPC or Entourage member can die in quicksand, but a player probably won't, or get bitten by a snake and slip from a cliff, and so on. Cameron's like, I love red shirts. Can't have the show without them. Also, well, not only does it easily portray what danger is in front of you, like, oh, you're in the jungle and there's dangerous plants that are reaching down to strangle people. Here's a way to let you know what's going on. But it's like, it's also a way to differentiate the heroism of the players against the entourage, right? So the red shirted entourage members, they get poisoned and suffer disease and dehydration, and while the players may not suffer those things, they now understand that they might come across like other NPCs, or the game master can dangle those threats over the PCs, knowing that they've seen those kind of things happen to members that are around them. Yeah, and like your LDM says, yeah, good point. You can't wander unprepared into a desert, jungle, tundra, and think you're going to make it out. You need local experts most of the time. Also, sometimes this might be like, this could be like in a video game, it could be checkpointed. So it might not just be, oh, I'm going to I've hired some local experts and they're going to take me across the desert. And once they do that, we're done. It may be necessary to either the PCs lead them or the guides lead the PCs to, like, let's talk about the desert. Maybe they have to be led to an oasis where the guides are going to remain there, but they're going to switch off for, I don't know, scorpion riders or something like that. Or the player characters must safely get those red shirted NPCs from one place to another to keep them from dying off, right? So let's say the entourage is like 20 strong. Maybe success is based on at least getting 10 of them to one place or another. And that might be the important part, whether the players are, the other than meeting in taverns, the caravan, the protecting the caravan is a classic story trope, and there's no need to go along with the caravan to get to the adventure. Maybe the adventure is going along the caravan, right? And every session, gaming session, is an episode of the players, protecting the caravan. And so that caravan might have like important dignitaries or supplies need to get to a particular community, and just getting there might be the adventure. And so, of course, members of the entourage are assigned to make sure the labor animals are watered and fed. Maybe there's someone else uh, someone else makes an encampment, or the scout of the party, the PC scout of the party, is followed by 2 or 3 other members of the entourage for the sole purpose of sending back a message or creating a distraction, to surround a food source, or to maybe even to take back an injured party member. Also, a local guide can give context to something that the players might assume is something else. So, for example, maybe the players are used to, maybe in the deep jungles, there were tribes there that were barbaric. PCs see other tribes in the desert, they assume the same thing. Now the one of the members of the entourage is like, no, they're not. We have a different social context for something. So even if we're mortal enemies, we always, get together and drink tea or chai or whatever. We give each other shelter in this vast desert or something. And sure, the PCs might be hesitant about it, but maybe one of their enemies, scimitar laden, enemy might allow them to come into their tent and share food. Looking across at each other, it might be some harsh words exchanged to each other, but they also might be given some kind of protection from the desert winds and heat of the day and coldness of the night. So context and information might be possible, as well as the the entourage granting the PCs maybe some sort of small case or uppercase A advantage in terms of crossing a particularly dangerous location. So, for example, as a dungeon master, you may have foreshadowed. Let's stick with the desert. So maybe the game master or dungeon master is already foreshadowed. Like, you know what? It's going to be real difficult for you to discover where the quicksand is and the pit traps and uh, hidden creatures under the sand. Like maybe the DCs are so high that like 20 plus, and the PCs have a super hard time discovering all of these obstacles and traps and layers and reskinned spell effects and all that other kind of stuff, and hidden monsters out there in the desert, unless they have one or more members of this entourage around them who helps them spot difficulties and dangers and navigate a topography that all looks the same no matter where you look. It's like you get to the top of the sand dune and do a 360 look around you, and it just, everything keeps shifting around and you have no idea. Even the sun is directly above you and you can't navigate by it. But maybe having members of the entourage are like, listen, as long as you have one of the members of the entourage, the DCs are lower, or you have a capital A advantage on survival, history, investigation, perception checks or something. But if, every time one of those red shirted, let's say you got 5 of them left and they start dying off one by one, well, this is an expended resource. Now, of course, giving these individuals personalities and physical traits and behavioral traits and whatnot, of course you want to do that. Especially if you put it in a player's hands and let them come up with their own collection of traits for these NPCs, I still think it could be fun. Also, this now when you're in these exotic locales, let's get out of the desert and go to like jungles or mountains or someplace like that. Okay, so you're in these exotic locations, and it also means that you can have alternate success or failure conditions. So normally, role-playing games, combat is your success or failure, right? We kill it, tries to kill us. Through attrition, one of us is going to survive. But if enemies try to kidnap and paralyze and poison and cause confusion or some kind of like navigation loss or something with members of the entourage, now the PCs might be in a tough decision. Like, we're trying to cross a raging river in the jungle. One or more members of our entourage are dangling on a rope that we led across the river. Maybe one of them gets swept away in the raging river. So now we've got to go after that individual. Monsters, trapdoor spiders, or maybe trap jungle spiders or something. What's another good animal? What's a deep good? Not the roper, although the roper does work. Oh, wow, my mind just went. It looks like a crab, half spider that is in the underdark subterranean realm that sends down something to drag a PC up into the air. Oh, not the choker, although the choker works too. Okay, so why am I worried about one particular thing? Cave Fisher. I thank you. Thank you so much. Well, anyway, cave fishers, chokers, ropers, piercers. Oh, there are a bunch of cloakers along with the chokers. Those are like those. Well, of course, the apex predator, the mimic, right? These are monsters that are specifically designed to blend into the environment and then take advantage of the PCs when they go by, right? The cave fisher is above the PCs. They get attacked, pulled into the air, and whatnot. So maybe the PCs and or entourage, something like that happens to them. Um, the best part of the cave fisher, of course, is cave fisher creature that is high above the PCs. I think it dangles some kind of like webbing or proboscis or something. Its long tongue or whatever, and it's adhesive, and then it grabs that person and drags them up into the air. Well, of course, the danger is, yeah, you can cut off the tongue, but you're also going to fall down, and the creature is far away from you, dangling however many feet or whatever above the PCs, and that creature also has an excellent ability to climb, which makes it very difficult for the PCs to get to that creature. And so that's just one example of like heights having an effect. But if that cave fisher, which you could call it something else in the jungle, I don't know, how about a foliage fumbler or something like that, right? It, it's also possible that maybe there's a very important individual that's part of the group that gets snatched up into the air. Like Cameron brings up, pack animals, if given enough modes of expression, can be played to the point of becoming a recognized member of the party's entourage. Yeah, in Plains and Grasslands, one of our cinematic environs, I wrote up a whole list of like 20 different traits to give to like a mundane animal, both the good and the bad sides of it, and kind of have fun with it. Like, having fun with the stubborn donkey is always a trope. So that's pretty funny. Jarl DM says, you're in the Underdark with drow guides. They lead you so deep that you can't make your way out. Your win condition is no longer kill the baddies, it's protect your guides or else. Yeah, especially when they've got attitudes. Jarl DM also says predators like that are also going to try to separate their prey from the rest of the party. They're going to grab you and run off, not stand and fight the party. That's I'm a huge proponent of that, where the goblins steal everyone's food, the jackal-like creatures try to separate the party. And I don't mean split the party in the classic sense of having one party members go to the left and the other party members go in the right in the dungeon, but they will try to separate them through angles of the environment, right? Like that cave fisher is going to try to cause some of the party members to go up in the air while the others are stuck down on the bottom of the cliffside. And what happens then? Or one or more animals can attack the party when they're trying to cross that raging river. Some are on one shore, others on the other side of the riverbank, others in the middle, some with ropes around them, others dangling on things. So the splitting the party is just a matter of where they're at and where they're going. When they go into the deep jungle and they lose sight of each other, all of a sudden, predators are quite intelligent instinctually, if not intellectually, and they will try to separate. That's why, what is it? Pack animals stick together, but the danger is that last pack animal is the one that gets attacked, the slowest member, the slowest, weakest, um, most confused member gets attacked and pounced on by predators. And so the same thing might be happening with these, you know, group of the extended family, the entourage, the ensemble around the PCs, and they're trying to keep them from wandering off or getting drunk or oversleeping or poking things with that 10-foot pole they shouldn't. Uh, I mean, you don't want to take that too far, but yeah. Cameron says, I hit a cloaker as a cloak and tricked a PC with it. The player decided to beat it to submission until it became his cloak. He also has a pet executioner's hood. I missed that campaign. I forgot about executioner's hoods. Those were like those. That was that during that period of time where there were a ton of Gaxian creatures. I warmly refer to them as Gygaxian creatures. Uh, Gaxian creatures meaning like monsters who live in an ecology whose sole purpose is the ecology of adventuring, right? Like the mimic as the treasure chest only works in an environment in which there's enough adventuring happening that it makes sense for a predator to look like a treasure chest, right? And so there was like the executioner's hood, the cloaker, the choker, the there was the rust monster actually works with this as well. Um, it was an earwig or something. If you listen close to a door, it would live inside keyholes and then burrow into your ear. Rot grubs would sit in dead bodies because PCs would loot dead bodies, so you could get rot grubs. There were all of these like monsters. The gelatinous cube is a perfect example as well. So yeah, there's a lot of Gaxian creatures. You don't see them anymore because they're kind of gotchas, but you, there was a reason why PCs went into dungeons with like well-paid henchmen, chickens, 10-foot poles, powder. What were some other items? Ball bearings, a pouch of sand, a bunch of different things. I remember playing with a group where um, they would always play a fighter, but they'd have like this this utility belt of all these different things. Like, I'm going to put a feather on the doorknob to make sure that an enemy, if they try to turn the door, will know if the feather falls off or something. Like, they would do a lot of that stuff. And instead of making a perception check or just making a die roll, that used to be how things were done. You had to describe all of your actions. I think there's a middle ground in that. I think most people give a middle ground, but yeah. Your all DM says, yeah, predators want to eat, not fight. The less energy they can expend, the better. Monsters probably don't want to fight you either. They just want to eat you. There's a. I most recently went to the Columbus Zoo and went to visit. Yes, I know during this the Rona apocalypse. I get it, but yes, my wife and I went to the zoo, and I'm sure you guys have already heard about this. They have like 6-month-old cheetahs, but they are about the same size as your common medium-sized dog. So they socialize the cheetahs with golden labs, because golden labs are very social dogs, right? And the reason for that is because naturally cheetahs are um, their quickness is based on them expending energy in a short burst. But for the most part, they tend to be very insular. They're not social. They go off by themselves. they'll find some place to hide in the shade, and they'll stay there for 23 hours of their day until they need to go eat, and then they expend that energy to go running. And so for a zoo, they want them to be socialized so that they're used to being around human beings. They will wander around their enclosure far more often. And so we got a chance uh, to see some of this in action with two cheetahs and two dogs. I think one was a labradoodle, and the other one was just a golden lab, and they were having fun. They were playing with the cheetahs. They were like wrestling and chasing toys and all that kind of good stuff. And I bring that up because most predators do not want to fight. They just want to eat. They just want to survive. And if it's easier for them, that's why a lot of bears go into or end up getting forced into or make the decision to go into urban areas because look, we just want to eat some food. We're going to go into dumpsters, and if it means going up on your back porch to eat some discarded barbecue from the party you had yesterday, then they will because they're not trying to puff their chest out and figure out who's going to fight. Yes, I am in Central Ohio. Yes, I am. Is Mofa? Cameron says, I like giving my animals a bestial language that the players know exist, as well as a mysterious level of intelligence that the players don't understand. So that way PCs never really know how, really know what's up. And also, it's pretty. We don't give nature enough credit for just how insidiously brilliant most animals can hunt. I don't know if you guys have watched animal documentaries, but when they show hyenas tracking down their prey and how they can organize themselves without a air quote language to separate and surround their enemies and track them down and stuff, it's pretty ingenious how they do it and can communicate and know to be downwind or upwind from prey. They know how to track their their prey over miles and miles of territory. It's both. Sorry to hear that. I'm down around Lancaster. No. It's quite all right. I will survive. Columbus. Yeah, I'm a letter carrier in Columbus, Central Ohio. Still, it's the humidity's been brutal for us. From I think we're getting humidity pushed in by the landfall of our hurricanes and whatnot. So yeah, we're not getting battered, but we just get the remnants of it, the rain, humidity, that kind of stuff. So um, I think also when it comes to like an entourage and the environment, um, it may require m- much like a like military style. Um, okay, I'm sorry. Let me rewind a little bit. Um, there are natural and then there are pre-built locations where you cannot navigate through them unless you have a number of people helping you. So, um, an example would be the obstacle courses that are used in military training or sporting events. There's also the obstacle course. There's the natural obstacle courses, or like what is it, Tough Mudder, Spartan Games. I'm trying to think of other obstacle course style. Floor is lava, obstacle course style games. Uh, uh, um, um, Obstacle course style games that are aired on television that we can have a lot of fun with and pull from. Legend of Zelda comes to mind. Jarl DM says David Attenborough's Dynasties has an episode on African wild dogs, and it's incredible to see how well they communicate and hunt together. Yeah, we tend to devolve into like, oh, it's a stat block of a creature. Here's an owlbear, right? As opposed to like, yeah, it's an owlbear that knows to remain away from prey for a certain amount of time, or attack a single party member when they've gone off to use the head or the loo in the woods, turning around behind a tree, and once the pants come down, boom, they get attacked because they're well away from other members. Yeah, yeah, dead man. Yeah, floor is lava. Yeah, so sometimes you might need. Yes, we tend to look at ourselves as individualistic, right? We're in a role playing game, and we want to be so highly skilled that on my own, with my own wits, I can survive anywhere. Man versus wild, right? Yeah, sure, that's fine, but there's also many places where an individual on their own is kicking themselves like, you know what, I really wish I had like 15 other members to climb up this friggin' mountain, because scaling an 80-foot cliff might be far more difficult by yourself than with individuals, where like in the classic military uh, or Spartan games styled wall, people standing on each other's shoulders and reaching their hands up or down, or whatever the case may be, might be far more important to get to a certain location. I remember being in camp. It was a camp called Pathfinders, and they always, every day, we had multiple sessions where we had to engage in something that required teamwork. And t- adding teamwork, layering teamwork into a role playing game might seem a little bit difficult. I mean, there are rules for it: help actions, skill challenges, things of that nature. But but yeah, having the sending one of the members of the entourage across the river to with an axe to go chop down a tree branch that's supposed to fall across the raging river, so other members can then cling to that tree branch, might be far more effective and important than a PC just harumphing and pouting and going across the raging river on their own, and not having to worry about all these other extraneous members and hangers on. Cameron says even a squirrel's warning barks are quite complicated. Um, uh, a lot of time it's just repeats, but there's a lot of variation that happens when they start talking to each other. Don't get me started on birds. Yeah, yeah. And heck, what is it? Ravens or crows or something? Um, are like, they have a lot of what we consider humanistic behaviors. They play, they hold grudges. When a predator attacks one crow, it communicates, that one crow can communicate to the other crows, and they start to work together. If I'm not mistaken, there's even been reports of human beings trying to assault one crow, and other crows will remember who they are and follow them around during the day, like to their home and office and automobile and stuff. Like I've heard of things like that. And this is role playing. These are role playing games. Why wouldn't we add that in there with, like, you know um, very very intellectually sound and intelligent monsters and things? Of course, even if they are of animal intelligence, of course they would be doing that. I'm looking at you, Displacer Beast, one of my favorites. Featherfall says, "Is it a bad idea to have joke creatures that serve no purpose but to be cute or funny?" Flumps would be a good example of this. You you stop making fun of Flumps. Yeah. Oh my god. For those who don't know, Flumps and a number of other monsters were introduced in the Fiend Folio back during the AD&D era. And the Fiend Folio was like equal parts ridiculous and jokey, and um, horrendously evil, powerful creatures. And Flumps were one of those. I don't even like, that must have been like one of the last toys they had, where Gygax and Arneson and the rest of them were like, this is at the bottom of the pile. I have no good idea for this. Hey, let's make Flumps lawful good. And whatever. Anyway, yes, there's no problem with adding in cute or funny or joke monsters, right? Uh, as long as they are not used like riddles or puzzles, where if you don't interact with them, the adventure stops with hits the brakes. It's the locked door syndrome, right? You don't want to do that with one of these like joke monsters. You don't want to put a riddle in front of a locked door, and then the PCs can't solve the riddle, because then they can't keep going on in the adventure. But if the joke monsters like kind of hang around, because listen, Gnomes and halflings are kind of like joke PCs. So yeah, there's space for the DM to have some fun too. So why not, right? Yeah, like Featherfall says, like as long as it doesn't distract from the story, yes. Heck yes, yes. Remove the question mark, and you're. I'm with you, right? Yeah, as long as it doesn't distract from the story. And listen, so, a lot of times we game beer and pretzel, or there's intense scenes, which is why there's humor sometimes thrown into horror stories or um, intense dramas. You need a release valve, and sometimes the joke monsters, joke NPCs, even the PC that plays the joke PC. You know, I'm the character with the floppy hat, and I'm playing a bard that uses a harmonica and horns or something, right? It's the yeah. Sometimes there's just comedy relief. It's all right. I don't. I never had a problem with comedy relief if we've all agreed that there will be some. So why not? Um, Jarl DM says, talking about the crows, they can remember human faces and will tell and describe the face to other crows. So if you piss off crows, they'll hassle you forever down the crow generations. How the hell they're able to do that, I don't know. Like, how do, it's like, how do they describe what you look like and what it is you did to get them all pissed off to go after you? I don't know. But like, crows have been known to not just hold grudges, but they play games, they find toys. They I remember going to the Columbus Zoo, and it was a blackbird, so it had to be like a crow raven family. What is it, corvid family or something? And it was having playing hide and seek with an elephant. Like there was a the elephant was in this enclosure, and there was a big section of like plant foliage, plants, trees that the elephant could walk around, but it couldn't see through it. And just I was just sitting on a bench, and the bird was behind the trees, and the bird would, without flying, would hop, hop, hop to the left, and then the elephant would like kind of like lean its body and look to see if it could find the bird. And when the bird was found, the bird would hop, 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 hop to the other side, and the elephant kind of looked off to the side, and then was like walking slowly around the tree, and the bird was hopping around the other side, and there was no pressure in it. You could see them like hanging with each other, and then at one point, like the bird landed on the back of the elephant, and the elephant was just like it was like cool with it. It was just it's a weird, cool interaction. And I was like, wow, they seem. I mean, I would label them as being humanistic, but that's what. Yeah, yeah. Featherfall's like, yeah, and even joke monsters can have good lore and be interesting. Crows playing hide and seek sounds adorable. It was. Oh, at the time, I didn't have. I don't even think we had video cameras on cell phones at the time. I think we still had like razors and flip phones, but whatever. Oh man, if I wish I'd have had it, because it went on for like a good 20 minutes or something, and them following each other and whatnot. So it was really crazy. Jarl DM says agrees with me. Like it's crazy. Scientists put on masks and hassle them, and they remember the masked face. Corvids are some of the most intelligent in solving puzzles and communications, etc. Yeah, it's wild. I love it. Dante says, I miss my old razor. Spelled Raise R. Yep. All right, so uh, taking care of the entourage, taking care of business every day is probably pretty important. But here's another thing as well. If you This isn't a very common thing in role playing games, but having an entourage hanging around is a great way to have players like drop in and drop out without needing to explain o vision why someone is or isn't there, right? So a player character could pick up a bunch of zero level humans and play them out in this dangerous environment as they travel through the harsh unknown of this world. Featherfall says, "Do you think crows would like to be pet?" I don't think they would consider themselves a pet. I could see them considering themselves to be equals. You might think they're a pet, and they might hang around if you feed them and whatnot, and your behavior aligns with what they want. But I think they're more. I think they'd be the equivalent of like feral cats or something. Like yeah, we'll hang around if you feed us, and maybe even play some music or some games or something. But I don't think they would consider themselves a pet, no matter what you thought. Now, hanging around indoors, I don't know. It might be difficult to get a corvid uh, bird, like a chickie that was small, and raise it. I guess like some people have raised, uh, like deer, squirrels, raccoons in their own homes. There's plenty of videos of people that have like domesticated wild animals. So I can see it's possible, but I don't know. There's something instinctual about them that makes them still wild. But in a role playing sense, they make perfect familiars. Someone comes up to a wizard with a corvid on its shoulder, and it's like, I need your assistance. And the bird is like, are you talking to my familiar? Because my familiar wizard's kind of busy right now. But if you need something, drop the bird seed right there on the table, and we'll talk. Your LDM says, I know ravens make for really, really bad pets. They totally wreck houses. They're curious and curious, and so break and smash things open to see what's inside. And they bite a lot. Ooh, see, well, pop my bubble. Yeah, thanks, thanks, Lloyd. Anyway, taking it's possible to take the entourage thing in a different way. So, in a different avenue where the PCs are the entourage, and they are taking care of the main individual, right? Like I once ran a game. I did this in White Wolf, but here steal the concept, right? So one of the player characters played like a prince in exile, and so they played a human being, and then all the other characters were players that were they were the special snowflakes, but they were the powerful members of a loyal entourage around a young noble who was basically a normal human. And if you guys know anything about White Wolf games, other than like the Hunter series of books, the playing a human being was always the worst thing to play in those role playing games. It was far better to be a werewolf, vampire, mage, wraith, or a ghost, and a shape changer, and all those kind of things, right? So it was specifically designed that human beings were far less powerful, but the player characters could be members of a loyal retinue, a cadre of individuals that are surrounding like one or more members of like a noble family, royal blood, whatever the case may be, loyalists. And so the PCs, despite being the most powerful individuals, um, follow the instructions of this noble family to get from one place to another. The royal assassin, the sage, the mentor, the member of the guard, or something like that. And so it could be the PCs themselves are playing the entourage. Um, the nobles are the ones that are getting them into trouble by being given instructions to explore this wider world, or get the nobles from point A to point B, either through exile or war or some political machination, traveling through a war-torn country or whatever. And so, yeah, sure, the PCs can easily survive out there in the wild, but they have to save people who don't have those capabilities. So they got to share their food and resources. They have to consider not traveling too far and wide, or away from the camp too far, or traveling too fast for the normies to keep up. Um, Ismafa says, I suppose you could mechanize the entourage, maybe a score you have to maintain to keep people from leaving you as your reputation drops. Yep, mutinies are a thing. Or use to gain new followers, or spend the points to upgrade members, etc. Only for groups that like Mechanical Crunch, I guess. If you haven't bothered to look at Blades in the Dark, it's absolutely positively built around that. There is a character sheet held by the entire group in Blades in the Dark for their gang. By the way, Blades in the Dark, about neo-Victorian gangs in a spirit-like arcane world. But yeah, it's all about backstabbing and being criminals and whatnot. And yeah, there's a character sheet involved in it. And yes, you can spend points to upgrade your gang rather than yourself. Yep. Yeah, I'm with you there as Mofa. Yeah, like I have it. We'll probably never get to play it. Yeah, we have a lot of darlings that we have sitting around that we never get a chance to play because just getting through the idea of explaining it to some other PCs, they're like their eyes start to glaze PCs players and their eyes start to glaze over and they're just like D20 what? Oh man, Cameron says to explain the absence of PCs, I made Dragon Ball Z inspired multi-dimensional aliens that recruit people for prize fighting. He can teleport PCs in and out of the world for training at any time. Sounds perfect to me. What? Why the hell not? What is it? Monty Cook's game Invisible Sun deals with players that fade in and out by coming to the real world or fading back into the actuality, which is like a dream world. But whatever. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. Yeah, haven't had a chance to use the aliens yet, though. It's all right. Dante Unknown says, when I ran Eberron, the party was allowed to maintain several characters, but they had to stay and guard or work the airship they had when their character's not active for the session. Free Entourage. Yep. Yeah, Jarl DM says, Blades in the Dark is a game I love, but never got to play either. Yeah, and I got to run maybe 2 or 3 sessions. Side note, I love the flashback mechanic. I absolutely love it. And it it's described complex, but it really is very simple, right? So and I will force this into our entourage discussion. Okay. So for example, player characters are out in the wild or they're exploring. Let's go urban. So player characters get to an urbanized city, maybe something big, a giant city state, and they send their entourage agents out to, you know, get the lay of the land, uncover information, question people, blend in, basically, fulfill some duties that the player characters have established for their entourage. So a flashback mechanic works like this. You go up to a city guard and you want to be allowed entry into a place where the city guard pretty much is going to tell you no. So instead of immediately rolling a persuasion check to persuade the guard to let you into the place where you can't get to, what happens is you can do a flashback. So maybe you say, I'm going to expend this particular resource. In Blades in the Dark, they call it stress, but this could be inspiration, this whatever. You could even just describe it and let it happen for free, right? But instead of persuading the guard in real time to let you in, what you do is you flash back. Oh, 3 days ago when we first got into town, I had myself or one of the members of the entourage, or if the player characters are the entourage themselves, they go to the guard who's hanging out at the tavern, have a discussion, and bribe, intimidate, convince, befriend, steal, pickpocket from the guard, or whatever. 3 days ago, the success or failure of that check, that die roll, is then uncovered. Then now we flash forward to the real time. The guard looks you in the eye, is embarrassed because you've got some blackmail on him, and lets you enter into the establishment. Now, it sounded complicated the way I described it, but essentially it's just skill rolls and skill checks, but you are just describing them out of time to explain what's happening recently. And the reason for the flashback mechanic is so you don't have to spend time 3 hours like in Shadowrun establishing a heist whenever all of a sudden you have all these complicated actions and the PCs just open up fire at the front door. Instead, Blades in the Dark is like, nope, you just get into the action of the heist. We're just going to flash back to the point in time in which you've already made this decision to do the thing, to have the thing. Like, for example, using Ismofa's comment about mechanizing the entourage, maybe there are like points, die rolls, resource expenditure to place members of the entourage in a location you want. Like in a espionage spy game, maybe one of the entourage is a member of serving dinner at a high class party function or something. Yeah, right. You didn't ahead of time establish that one of your entourage is undercover, but you've decided to do that. You know. Um, oh, thank you, Dead Man. Dead Man pops into the Discord. Like the lyre bird is said to be a relative of the corvids. A bird mimics chainsaw, car alarms, and more. The weirdest animals. Oh, I'm gonna have to take a look at that when this is over. I really wish I could post up pictures and videos and things like that without getting tagged by YouTube, but or even Twitch or something. But whatever. But anyway, yeah, you could establish like, oh, I want to expend. Well, how many points of my entourage would I have to expend to put them as members of the servant staff? And you're like, well, normally it'd be 1 point, but they're kind of security's on their toes. You have to expend 2 points. You're like, oh well, I've only got 5 points of entourage. All right, I'll spend two of them, and I'll have a member of my group undercover serving meals or in in the kitchen with the cooks and washing dishes or something. Um, could they sneak in those weapons that we're not allowed to sneak in? You're like, all right, make a die roll. I get a let's see, I expended 2 points, so now I have a 5. All right, I get a +3 on the roll for my entourage. Yep, I made it. All right. Yeah, they sneak in your weapons, and I'll say they even sneak in some armor or something like that you guys can put on, and one of your magic items or something. Like, great, cool. All right, we're going to gather our things. We're going to go into the kitchen. Um, blah blah blah. You'll continue the game that way. Now, if the player characters themselves are the entourage, this happens a lot in like war settings or political settings where the players are like lobbyists and lawyers and investigators and law enforcement and things like that. Like the players could represent those members of society, but they're supporting a larger faction. Then what the players could be doing is achieving certain types of goals that represent maybe some kind of mechanical feature. Like you need to navigate the political system of this region, you need to obtain 10 successes to do a thing. This has been done plenty of times in especially a lot of indie games where combat is reskinned or reflavored as achieving something in a different manner, right? So, for example, player characters need to convince, I don't know, city leaders to do what they want. So instead of armor class and hit points, there could be some kind of DC attached to it using 5th edition. There could be a DC attached to it, and the DC itself could represent like hit points, or you could establish like you need to obtain 10 successes to even talk your way past the entourage that's surrounding the political leader to even talk to them to get a meeting. And so you need like 10 successes. So the player character is like, well, can we get all those successes at one time? You're like, nope, you got to work your way up the ladder. You're like, all right, so I'm going to wait for one of the political leaders' entourage to go to lunch, and then I'm going to corner them in the local tavern or eatery and pretend like I'm lost and try to seduce this individual. You're like, oh, okay, so make a roll. And then what happens is you could spread that out through your player characters to each have to obtain so many successes, and they could help each other out, help actioning each other. The I'm going to play the bully I'm going to play the obnoxious boyfriend or love interest who the NPC will then push me off, and then that sparks the seductive manner, right? You're like, oh, okay. Oh, Lurker, what's going on there? Hey, glad you could join us. Although we're gearing down, we're at our last 5 minutes or so. But anyway, the idea of like having so many successes, or even attaching some kind of like air quotes hit point total or stress or success feature to something that's non-combat, right? Like let's say the DC to convince a particular leader is like 40. Well, no, Is it possible to roll that if you're like 17th level? Probably, but not really, right? For most first or second tier level characters in 5th edition. So you might have to whittle that down. So maybe expending like maybe the inverse proportional use of hit dice or something, right? Where you roll to cause damage to reduce the DC down to something that's manageable, and each of this might take moments, hours, days, weeks to achieve a certain goal. In the ICRPG, the Index Card RPG, they use something called hearts. Every heart equals like 10 hit points, and you can attach hearts to like picking a lock or convincing a guard or crossing a raging river. And in order to do it, they have another statistic as a die called like effort, and you roll your effort, and your effort this lockpick is a 10 heart. It's a 1 heart lock. It requires 10 hit points. All right, I roll my effort, and I only got 3 points. All right, that means next round I'm going to have to spend. It's down to 7 in order to finish picking the lock, and I could see something done like that to used in survival. I could see something like that in navigating a city region where there are more mechanical effects in terms of navigating with a larger entourage. Also, you could, if you really wanted to go bizarre, like I had mentioned earlier in the week, that player character capabilities are attached to their entourage. So maybe you have a numerical value that represents each member of the entourage, linked to like a paladin's lay on hands or a rogue's ability to sneak attack or something like that. And once those members of the entourage are removed from the group, they temporarily lose those capabilities until they're able to like re-up their entourage or something, convincing others to go their way. I could see this being used in a rebellion where the PCs are like, okay, we need to get our entourage needs to be 20 plus in order for this rebellion to get off the ground. Otherwise, the evil dictator is going to figure out who we are and what we're about. They're like, all right, so maybe what we can do now is we need to get in touch with the entourage, but we also need to have a decoy so that they don't see that we're trying to plan this rebellion, and then the PCs can kind of navigate around the world that way. Lastly, I will say that, especially when it comes to survival, reskinning those traps and having places that are not just a blue screen, but hey, going through the jungle requires hacking through the foliage and climbing up and down hills and watching out for torrential rain, and again, crossing that raging river, or needing to cross a very deep ravine with a precariously placed fallen tree branch over top of it, or going back to the ever so classic rope bridge with the wood planks and the fraying hemp that's been attached across a massive chasm or something like that. Like, all of those things might need to be navigated with an entourage. So let's say PCs have a wagon full of gold. How the hell are you going to get it across a rope bridge? All right, well, we're going to instead put it in sacks, and then each member of the entourage is going to carry across a sack. You're like, all right, well, how heavy are these sacks going to be, and how long is it going to take you? Like, I don't know, but as long as we can defend our entourage, it's going to take 5 rounds for them to get all the way across. And here come the, I don't know, goblin riding pterodactyl javelin throwers that are flying in and above and underneath the rope bridge in this chasm. We need to protect our entourage to hopefully get all of our ill-gotten goods from one side to another. So, yeah, putting pressure, time pressures, spatial pressures on the party through the entourage is also a good idea as well, by saying like, hey, a disease is sweeping through a region. You're going to have to make sure that your part members of your entourage are healthy and safe. starvation, dehydration, poison, other kinds of injuries, twisted ankles, broken bones, internal bleeding might be necessary in terms of like, well, we can't heal them out here, or we need to gather herbs and I'll say herbs and spices, which kind of counts too. Herbs and spices and seeds and bark and sap and all that kind of good stuff out of plants around the region. Or we've sent the Entourage off to complete a particular mission, and we need to remain still and safe for them to get back to us. So I think the Entourage is a good tension generator as well. But anyway, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of it. Tomorrow we'll see you on Future Friday. Please take part in that. And by the way, please like, share, subscribe, spread the news of this long form podcast over 3 platforms if you don't mind. Anyway, guys, have a great one. I will see you later.